All right, buckle up, buttercups, because we're diving headfirst into the political roller coaster that is the Trump presidency, year two. The headlines are screaming, the polls are, well, let's just say they're having a moment. We're going to break down exactly what's going on, why these numbers are making waves, and what it really means for you, me, in the future and beyond. Get ready for some straight talk, a few laughs, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of political therapy. Let's roll.
Look, 2025 was not exactly the best year for the President of the United States. He started off in pretty gosh darn good territory, right? Trump's net approval rating in January, he was 6 points above water, pretty much above where he was during his entire first term in office. But look what happens come December. 12 points underwater, way down there. That is an 18-point decline during the course of the year. Now, what has driven Donald Trump's decline in his net approval rating? Well, it's independents. That is the name of the game, baby. Look, in January, Donald Trump's net approval rating among independents was about even, minus 1 point. Not too hot to trot, but not too bad either. Now, whoosh, we're talking about 43 points underwater come December. That is a decline of 42 points on his net approval rating. Donald Trump is hanging out with Jacques Cousteau.
Whoa. Hold on a second, all right? Hanging out with Jacques Cousteau. Now, that's a visual, but jokes aside, a 42-point drop among independents. That's not just a dip. That's a political Mariana Trench. This isn't just a bad quarter. This is an earthquake in the political landscape. A 42-point slide in less than a year is the kind of number that makes strategists lose sleep and campaign managers reach for the antacids. Think about it. Independents are the ultimate swing voters. They're not wearing red hats or blue ties. They're the folks trying to figure out if their grocery bill is going to break the bank or if their kids are getting a decent education. They're often less interested in the partisan fireworks and more concerned with practical outcomes. When they're abandoning ship at this rate, it's a flashing red light, not just a flicker. It completely challenges the narrative that he's maintaining broad appeal. It speaks to a fundamental disconnect. What was working for President Trump in January when he was above water with this crucial demographic clearly isn't anymore. This isn't about the diehard base. They're probably still cheering from the sidelines. This is about the people in the middle, the ones who might have held their nose and voted for him because they liked something he offered. Perhaps the economic promises or the shake things up vibe. But a 42-point swing, that's not just a shift, that's a wholesale rejection of something. It suggests that whatever appeal he had with them has not only evaporated, but has been replaced by significant disapproval. It's like going from, hey, he's all right, to get me off this ride in less than a year. The question isn't just that. It happened, but why? What changed so dramatically in the perception of these independent voters? That's the real puzzle we need to solve, because these are the voters who often decide elections, not the locked-in partisans. This isn't just data. It's a political warning siren going off at full blast, suggesting a serious challenge to his perceived mandate and future electoral viability. If you can't hold the center, you can't win the game.
That is how far underwater Donald Trump is with independents at this point. Now, what issues are driving this decline in Trump's approval rating, his net approval rating? Well, let's look at two of the key issues, right? The economy, the reason that Donald Trump was elected to a second term back in January, he was in pretty good shape at plus 9 points on the net approval rating. But look, come December, 16 points underwater. That is a decline, doing the math quickly here, of 25 points for Donald Trump on the key issue of the day, the economy, the reason he got a second term. And then, of course, immigration, which Donald Trump has really focused in on during his second term in office, something he has been focusing on since he first ran for the presidency all the way back in 2015. Well, in January, he was 9 points above water on the issue. Now he's 6 points below water on the issue. So on the key issues of the economy, inflation, going in the wrong direction for Donald Trump. Now, there is a bit of good news, or at least some solace that Donald Trump can take when you compare him to other 21st century presidents at this point in their second term. Look at their net approval rating. Trump is 12 points underwater, but Barack Obama right nearby at 11 points underwater. George W. Bush also right nearby at 10 points underwater. So you see this, hey, Trump isn't doing so bad. But here's the key nugget to keep in mind. Their parties, Barack Obama's and George W. Bush's, both suffered major losses come the midterm elections in their second term.
All right, that key nugget is less of a nugget and more of a political boulder dropped on the table. It's like saying, hey, your car is on fire, but don't worry, other people's cars have been on fire too. And then adding, oh, and those fires usually lead to total write-offs. Not exactly comforting, is it? This isn't just about President Trump's personal approval. It's about the ripple effect across his entire party. History, as the saying goes, doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And right now, the rhyme sounds a lot like major losses. For a president's party to suffer significant setbacks in a second-term midterm is practically a political tradition. It's the electorate's way of hitting the reset button, or at least trying to. Why does this happen? Well, after 4 to 6 years, voters often get a little fatigued. They might want to check on power, a bit more balance, or they just want to send a message that they're not thrilled with the direction things are going. If the president's approval is already underwater, as it is with Trump, Obama, and Bush at similar points, that dissatisfaction funnels directly into votes against the incumbent party's candidates for Congress. It's a referendum not just on the president, but on the entire political apparatus associated with him. So while the initial comparison might offer a fleeting moment of he's not uniquely bad, the historical outcome is a stark reminder. Being not uniquely bad often still leads to uniquely painful midterm elections for your party. It's the political equivalent of finding out your house is only kind of on fire, but it's still going to burn down. This isn't just a historical footnote. It's a playbook for what's likely to come. And it should have every Republican on the ballot in 2026 sweating a little.
Why? Because, take a look here. Okay, term 2, negative net approval ratings at this point. Did they go positive by the midterm elections? In Barack Obama's case, no, it didn't happen. His party lost control of the Senate, suffered major losses in the U.S. House of Representatives. George W. Bush didn't go positive either by the midterm elections. His party lost control of the House and the Senate. And then, of course, all the way back in 1973, going into 74, Richard Nixon's net approval rating was negative. He was actually forced from office before those midterm elections, and then his party suffered major losses in Congress. We'll have to wait and see if the same thing happens to Donald Trump. He gets a question mark at this point, but based upon history, it doesn't look too good for the man in charge of the White House right now. Oh, and Manu, Happy New Year.
All right, Happy New Year to you too, Harry. And I've got a terrific panel joining me right now. CNN's Jeff Zeleny, NPR's Tamara Keith, and Bloomberg's Mario Parker. Happy New Year to you guys as well. A lot to look forward to in the year ahead. Let's take stock of what just happened and where things are going. You know, Harry, those numbers were pretty stark. I mean, look at this. The independent number I was really struck by. I mean, Trump was down with independents by 1 point in January. Now he's down by 43 points underwater. A 42-point slide.
And
wow.
It's wow. And this is not news to the White House. I mean, you can hear it sort of week by week recently. President Trump is increasingly asking, in midterm elections, why do presidents, their party lose seats? He's just been bringing it up randomly in Oval Office meetings.
I wonder why.
It's on his mind. Of course, he has seen this movie before. In 2018, the first midterm of his first term, he had big losses. It's why the White House has been so obsessed with redistricting. It's why they've been so obsessed with trying to change the game. And as we end the year here and look forward to the new year, the redistricting is about a wash. I mean, there are still a couple unanswered questions. Florida, for example, which is going to help Republicans a touch. Virginia is going to help Democrats a touch. But by and large, redistricting alone is not going to save the president. So I think when we take stock of what we know now about Trump, he's been a very activist president in terms of flexing the executive authority of his office. But we also learn how he spends his time. And I think that is one of the reasons that the numbers are so low, because he promised to fight for you He's actually doing a lot of stuff for himself.
Yeah.
Like plaques, the Trump Kennedy Center, a lot of things. So that is what frustrates some White House advisors.
Okay, this right here is the gut punch for many voters, especially those crucial independents we were just talking about. He promised to fight for you. He's actually doing a lot of stuff for himself. That line isn't just critical, it's a political truth bomb. It cuts to the core of the perceived contract between a leader and the people. Think about it like this. You hire a plumber to fix your leaky faucet. He shows up, talks a big game about how he's going to fix all your plumbing problems. But then you catch him in the backyard building a new gold-plated bird bath for himself with your tools and on your dime. How long are you going to keep him around? Not long, right? You hired him for your problem, not his pet projects. This sentiment that the president is more focused on Trump Kennedy Center plaques or retribution for personal grievances rather than addressing the everyday struggles of Americans is precisely what alienates those swing voters. They don't care about the political score settling. They care about inflation, jobs, and their community. When the narrative shifts from fighting for you to fighting for himself, it erodes trust faster than a sandcastle against the tide. And the fact that White House advisors are frustrated by this, that's a huge tell. It means even those closest to the president recognize the disconnect and the political damage it's causing. They see the numbers, they hear the whispers, and they know that focusing on personal agendas, no matter how satisfying they might be to the base, is a losing strategy for broader appeal. It's a fundamental misreading of what the majority of Americans want from their leader. Solutions, not personal sagas. This isn't just about optics. It's about the very substance of governance, and it's clearly failing to resonate beyond a very specific, dedicated faction.
He promised to be a your retribution. He's actually just doing stuff for Donald Trump. And I think that hits at some of these independent numbers.
It's such a good point. And we're going to be talking about those Trump awards later in the show and what it all means. But Tamara, you cover the White House. When Trump looks at those numbers, is he denying those exist, or is he privately acknowledging we got to change course here at least a little bit?
Well, look at his behavior, right? He didn't hold rallies much of the year. All of a sudden, he's holding rallies. Now, are those rallies on message? No. But he's giving the audience what they want, which is the weave and all of the things and all of his complaints and all of his retribution and all of that. But I think that these numbers answer a question, which is, what happens when a president only governs for the base and only governs based on his whims, his desires, his ideas of what makes good policy? And the answer is, you lose independents. You lose Democrats who probably weren't going to give him the benefit of the doubt anyway, but you find yourself very deeply underwater. There's a reason why presidents often, when they enter office, try to govern for all Americans. And President Trump has really made no secret of his desire to just focus on the base, focus on keeping the promises he made in the campaign.
It's really been his mantra since coming into office,
Yes.
focus on the base.
Yeah, and he has kept a lot of promises, including some promises people didn't really believe he was going to keep.
Right.
And that, like, seeking retribution and all of those other things, proves to not be popular with the broad swath of the country.
And this was what alarmed a lot of Republicans when hit the numbers that Harry discussed about the economy and immigration. I mean, look, two issues. He's down 16 points underwater. Compared in immigration, that's an economy. In immigration, 6 points underwater. He was +9 in both in January.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why he won.
No, absolutely. A couple of things, I think, just to hit on your points. we're at the decade mark of Trump, right? Coming down the golden escalator. Arguably, out of all the things that we've seen over the last 10 years or so, what's confounded Democrats the most is someone who's made their name, their brand synonymous with wealth for all of these decades to then connect with the working class and blue collar voters who once comprised their own base, right? So as we continue to look and assess whether or not what the future of MAGA is, the state of Trump, whether or not he has this grip and this hold is lasting, what we are seeing is this slippage in his ability to connect with those voters, right? And we see that playing out with the affordability issue. We see that playing out with independents as well. You all know we've covered him for the better part of the last decade. The independents, as long as the economy was good, would hold their nose with some of the heavy-fisted and ham-headedness on immigration or some of the remarks that they didn't agree with. Now, as they worry about whether or not they're going to be able to pay their next bill, they have fear about what the future looks like, they have less tolerance for some of those sideshows as well.
That's such a good point. And, as we look back at what he's done this past year, the executive actions have just been stunning. This is really, the stat really just says it all here. The executive orders in his first year, as 221 as of December 21st for Trump. Look at that compared to, this is Joe Biden, with 77 for Biden and far fewer for the president's. But even Trump was 55 in his first year. So, is he accomplishing most of what he set out to do by these executive actions?
Yes and no. Initially, some of the executive orders, a lot of those in there are basically the equivalent of naming a post office. They don't have much purpose, but others are part of a big, I'd say the biggest change in the second Trump term is that they came in with the exact list of what.
Okay, this is where we get into the nuts and bolts of how power is wielded, and it's a fascinating, if sometimes frustrating, look behind the curtain. The sheer volume of executive orders is staggering, but the idea that a lot of those in there are basically the equivalent of naming a post office is a crucial distinction. It's like being impressed by a chef who makes 200 dishes only to find out 150 of them are just toast. Quantity doesn't always equal quality or impact. However, the insight that this administration came in with an exact list and know their way around the office suggests a far more strategic, almost surgical approach to executive power in the second term. They're no longer fumbling, they're executing. This isn't just random acts of presidential penmanship. It's a deliberate attempt to bypass a potentially uncooperative Congress and implement policy directly. It's a testament to both their resolve and perhaps the limitations of our legislative process when consensus is scarce. But here's the rub. While executive orders can be incredibly effective for immediate action, they often lack the permanence and broad buy-in that comes from legislation. What one president can do with a stroke of a pen, another can undo just as easily. It creates a kind of policy whiplash where the direction of the country can swing wildly with each new administration. It might satisfy the base in the short term, but it doesn't necessarily build a stable, broadly accepted framework for the future. The mention of the Supreme Court effectively letting the administration have their say is also critical. It means these aren't just symbolic gestures. Many are having real, tangible effects on the country, but it also raises questions about the balance of power and the long-term health of our democratic institutions. Are we moving towards a system where presidents increasingly rely on executive fiat rather than the messy but ultimately more representative process of lawmaking? That's a question with profound implications for all of us.
They wanted to accomplish. A lot of them through executive orders. They know their way around the office. Like anyone getting a job for a second time or going back to an office place, they know what they want to do. Like Stephen Miller, for example, his top advisor had a long list of things to accomplish. A lot of them were by executive order. But by
at the beginning, too, they were just doing executive orders nonstop in the first couple months.
Right. And it makes the president happy when he signs an order. So some of those are, are basically in name only, but others have real teeth. And we've seen the Supreme Court effectively, so far at least, basically let the administration have their say here.
And that, my friends, is a wrap on our deep dive into the political landscape. From the plummeting independent numbers to the strategic, sometimes symbolic use of executive power, it's clear that President Trump's second term is anything but quiet. The challenges are real, the stakes are high, and the political currents are shifting faster than ever. What do you think? Are these numbers a wake-up call or just a blip on the radar? Hit that like button if you found this breakdown insightful. Subscribe for more straight talk. And most importantly, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going because your voice matters. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep those critical thinking caps on.